back to Road Gang Radio with Jimmy Mack, Lindsay Lawler.
Give me a minute, y'all. I'm coming.
And you, because if you're listening, you're in the gang. Take it away, founding member Phone Master Dre.
That I could do on this lovely Halloween from the Fastport Studios.
Unbelievable, by the way, isn't it? Couldn't ask for better weather. It's like Central Casting just rolled into the city of New Orleans, man.
Oh, dude, that and the hat game in the
I'm
studio
telling
right
you, man,
now.
hat's where it's at, brother.
It is.
I mean, hat is where it's at, brother.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, I got a little Boston Scally thing. I have 30 Boston Scally hats now.
Oh, wow.
I have one called the Kraken and one called the Loch Ness, dude.
How do we arrive at the Kraken? Like what?
It's a six-paneled hat
Yeah.
that actually has. It's a six-paneled hat that actually has the colors of what that area of the world is like.
Interesting.
It's gorgeous, and they give you pins too. I couldn't put a pin on this one because it's a leather.
Yeah.
It's a leather cap. But I have a whole bunch of pins that I usually wear in my caps and hats, and they actually have Jaws 50th anniversary stuff that's really groovy and it's like the woman getting eaten by the shark. All kinds of
Right.
groovy stuff like that. Before we go any further, Dr. Edward Simon is a doctor of clinical psychology. He, like myself, is a lifelong New Orleanian. He's also the founder of Spirit Empire Tours. You did check who's going to be taking the tour with you tonight, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're coming on board tonight, and I'm excited about that.
I am too. Our good friend Bunny and her new beau are going to be joining us as well. He's also the creator and host of the award-winning podcast Human. And I wish I could, Dre, even on this platform, even where I can drop a whole lot of interesting words. All I can say is human. I can't say it. We're going to say human truckery.
All right,
Yeah.
got
How
it.
about we call it that? How about we call it?
We
that?
didn't make it easy
No.
for like traditional media,
But the thing is, we're not traditional, but there's a point where I feel like at this point, my general manager and the associate producer over in Clarksville are like, do you have to use that word? So we will say truckery, and you get exactly what I mean. Human
brand.
truckery. His walking ghost tours, by the way, Ghost Gods and Gangsters of New Orleans, dives into the city's haunted history. And by the way, I've known him for a long time, so when he says sharp storytelling with no sugarcoating, he actually means it. He's got a great background in psychology. He's one really smart dude and a love like we have over here. And I'll be using his voice as well, along with his pal Kimberly Kay. I'll be using their voices in the latest upcoming podcast, Cargo Out of Space. He'll be joining us for that too. He brings it all together with real history, psychological insight, and that we touch of chaos, as people say, happy Halloween to people, to create unforgettable experiences both on the streets and, as he is right now, behind the mic. You like our studio?
I love it. It's got a great vibe. Love Dr. John on the wall.
Yeah, I know.
Solid.
By the way, the music that we play to bring people in and out is a piece of music that was composed called Dr. John Vibe.
That's
Is the
fantastic.
music that we kind of
That's fantastic.
we actually got the rights to it. I'm like going, I want that, and Claire's like, you just want this to feel real New Orleanian. I'm like, you bet your bottom dollar. How you been, man?
I've been doing great. How about yourself?
I'm not bad. I think Dre's got a question for you. What you
Oh,
got?
no, I was just going to tell him you need to check out the rest of it because a little green room area back there,
Yeah.
you'll like
It's
that.
coming along
Oh,
really
yeah.
nicely too. Oh yeah, guys.
Nice aura.
Well, yeah, we got what we did was we hung those rather than hanging pictures. We have 12 of those record frames.
Uh-huh.
Where you can put the record inside of it and hang it so
Sure.
we can swap it out. And Dave, of course, has a wealth of trucking albums.
Mm-hmm.
So every season we just swap it out for colors or themes to kind
Yeah.
of get different trucking albums up there.
That's wonderful.
And it's just kind of fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about the tour.
Sure.
So you can't give away too much because I'm
No.
going on it tonight. I got to enjoy myself. But I want to give people a sense if they come down here to New Orleans. And by the way, you were at the party. You saw a number of people down there who are over-the-road truck drivers. Our friend Jerry Bowers, Marshall Platter, who is a big supporter of this show. We know we're going to get Trucker Boaston down here sooner rather than later. We're thinking of you, Trucker Boaston, and we're glad you're back here. Got your message, by the way. Talk to me a little bit about when people come down here, what they can expect and how you blend the podcast work. Because we all have to do this, man. We all are doing like 3 or 4 different things. So we got to figure out ways that we can create what I call the Taco Bell. Dave Nemo calls it the Taco Bell effect.
Right.
Same 5 ingredients
Right.
in different packaging. So
Yeah.
talk about the crossover, but talk about the tour.
Well, the tour, it's I don't want to call it a traditional kind of ghost tour. That's kind of usually how it gets relegated. But for me, it's less about the scares. It's more about the people. It's about the psychological backdrop of New Orleans. We talk about it being America's most haunted city. And usually when you think about hauntings, you're thinking about supernatural phenomenon, right? But there you go. But if I told you that me as a person, from a psychological or even an emotional perspective, that I felt haunted by things, usually you would think about the person, places, things in my life that maybe I can't let go of, or maybe some of the events that have shaped the mythology of my life and kind of how I see the world. And that's how I look at The Haunting of New Orleans. It's about the stories that have shaped our perspective, not just about the outside world, beyond the bounds of the bayous, right? But how we see ourselves. And that's usually, I think, a big determination about the future of New Orleans. Has always been about how we see ourselves. And I like to say on my tour that we're a city devoted to our suffering, devoted to our pains and traumas.
It falls into preservation by neglect as well, too.
Right.
If I let something fall apart and then declare it historical, nobody will touch it and let it stay that way.
For sure. Absolutely.
I was you'll get the connective tissue here in regard to the French Quarter.
Sure.
So I had a friend of mine, before he moved here, he went into the movie JFK.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, You're telling me that the head of the Trade Mart was actually hanging out with a failed Catholic priest and kind of second-rate pilot and a failed CIA agent who was actually doing private investigative work, and along with a Cuban nationalist and a right-wing fascist prostitute, conspired to kill the President of the United States. He goes, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. He then lived in the French Quarter, and 4 weeks later he said, I can totally see how that would happen.
Yeah. It shocks people when we start talking about the mafia or gangster backdrop of the city. A lot of the courtroom scenes, or all of the courtroom scenes in JFK, were filmed at the Supreme Courthouse in the French Quarter.
This is great. My Uncle Jimmy's courtroom.
Oh, yeah?
Was filmed in my Uncle Jimmy's courtroom, and because of that, he actually got a chance to hang out with Kevin Costner and Oliver Stone for the length of the shoot, because he became kind of an informal consultant on the history of New Orleans at the time,
That's
which
fantastic.
is why they get the accents right.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you remember the judge, like, you watch your mouth, Jimmy Boy. And people say, why does the guy have a New York accent? I'm like, he doesn't.
I get that all the time. People come in the tours, they say, why don't you sound like you're from here? You say you've been here your whole life.
You see, he sounds like he's from here. That's Thibodeau right there.
Right.
So he's got the voice. People go, that's the Louisiana accent. Where do you live, Dre?
Yeah, you can go in and out. Right now I live in Biloxi, but
Okay.
I'm from Natchitoches, Louisiana.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah, Edward and I have
Cool
very
hats.
New Orleans. I mean, we're wearing New Orleans hats and have very New Orleans. We're from Boston's southernmost neighborhood.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
I've tried over the years to kind of socialize the dialect out of my articulation. That way people can maybe understand me a little bit better on the tours. I feel like when I was younger, you would have needed a translator. My tours would have to have closed captions. It was so thick, just sounding like you're from a deep Brooklyn neighborhood or something.
Yeah,
like
if you want to hear the funniest thing is you get my father and my uncle together. They're not brothers, brother-in-laws together, and they both have done a really good job of being able to talk in front of the Supreme Court, talk on the bench at the court, and all that kind of stuff. But they get around each other, and it's happening. If you haven't noticed, by the way, with you and I are slowly drifting there, and we'll pull him into our orbit too, because he pulls me into all that stuff too over there. All that, but it really is. But that goes back to what you're talking about. There is the rhythm of the city, right?
Sure.
That it pulls people in and puts them on the same wavelength.
For sure.
Or you get pushed out, right?
Yeah. And what I was about to say prior to our veering into dialect discussion, if you're facing the Supreme Courthouse, right off to your right, there's a little street called Exchange Place. Most people don't know that Lee Harvey Oswald grew up on that street, like just a rock's throw away from where these courtroom scenes were filmed. His last known address before going to Dallas and assassinating JFK was where the Popeyes is now on Canal Street. Like, it's the entanglement of mafia history in association, especially with the JFK assassination, is just. If you take my tour, I feel like a lot of people would walk away convinced they now know who killed JFK.
Well,
sure.
That's one of the funny things. My dad worked in Jim Garrison's law office, and he always made the joke: you go to the Roosevelt in the Blue Room, and he said Garrison would start talking about the assassination. He'd be like, "Jesus, Jim, you're totally out of your mind." He said on the first cocktail, you thought Garrison was out of his mind. He always said,
Sure.
by the time you got to your third Sazerac, you knew Jim had something.
Oh, for sure.
Edward, have you heard about the Fair Play for Cuba Committee and the implications on our assassination of our beloved President John Fitzgerald? And Dean Andrews with all that nonsense. John Candy plays him in the movie, that bebopping attorney.
Sure.
There was something going on down here, wasn't there?
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%. Hoffa's attorney, Frank Regano, in the 1990s, he wrote a book, and he explicitly stated that prior to Kennedy's assassination in 1962, Hoffa sent him down to New Orleans, where he met with our mafia boss, Carlos Marcello, and the head of the Tampa crime family, Santo Trafficante, where he essentially gave New York's blessing, saying, we've got to put these wheels in motion. And many people on my tours, they say, why would they orchestrate this? Why would they want to take out JFK if the mafia's primary adversary was Bobby Kennedy? And I always tell them the same thing. It was a quote by Marcello. He said that if you want to kill a dog, you don't cut off its tail, you cut off the head.
Yeah. You kill its owner.
Yeah.
You kill the dog's owner.
And Hoffa said, now Bobby Kennedy is just another attorney.
Yeah. And what's crazy about that is the fact, can you imagine the panic
Sure.
that must have set in 1968 when they turned on their television sets and he was actually giving that speech from the Ambassador Hotel and being like, and literally because people don't know this as well either, is that it's really a sad story. The night that Kennedy was killed, they found Daley in his room. Mayor Daley was crying in his room because basically they'd already put the plan into motion how they were going to steal the nomination from McCarthy and get it to Kennedy.
Yeah.
Which that would have been because there was a real sense of, the people who talk about the current president coming back and wanting to settle scores.
Sure.
That man, there was terror. There
Absolutely.
was bona fide terror that
For
if he had
sure.
ascended to the presidency, it was like, okay, we're going to clean out this viper's nest right here and right now.
Yeah.
The stakes were incredibly high,
1,000%.
which is why I think that the other thing is there is a great story that Gerald Posner, who thinks that Oswald acted alone, but tells a great story that he thinks that Marcello might have engaged in either one of the greatest conspiratorial cover-ups or one of the greatest trolls of all time. When they reopened the investigation in the 70s, they were wiretapping. Everybody who knows conspiracies knows the story, and Marcello says, shut up, come outside with me. And they went outside for like 10 minutes on the tape, and they come back in, he goes, that's who did the job, and that is the last time I will talk about it. And no one ever knows whether he was simply acknowledging the fact that he was wiretapped and messing with them, or actually if he didn't know and he walked outside to be like, if you got a problem with this, you can go find somebody, and if you want to throw him under the bus, that's the guy to do it to.
But clearly, it would not be the last time Marcello would discuss this. He was incarcerated in the late 1980s, and he was recorded.
We know what Bobby Kennedy did to him. Dropped him off in the middle of nowhere.
That is true. I believe it's Ecuador.
Yeah, basically dropped him off.
Right.
And
he essentially smuggled his way back into the country on a shrimp boat. But in the late 1980s, he was recorded. He was in federal prison. He was talking to an inmate, a fellow inmate, and he was going off about his grievances. And to paraphrase, he says, not only did I orchestrate the assassination of JFK, my only regret is that I did not pull the trigger myself. And we know this because that inmate was an FBI informant, and he was wearing a wire. These transcripts can be found on the FBI's website.
By the way, the counter argument, and by the way, I love to keep myself open to it. You ever heard the counter argument for why there is no conspiracy? Because the conspiracy is completely after the fact, that Oswald completely fits the profile. The FBI, unlike the Dallas police, who had rounded up all of their usual suspects, knew who Oswald was, and that Hoover just went, c'est la vie.
Yeah.
And let whatever happens, and then all the cover up is like them desperately trying not to let the Freedom of Information Act expose the fact that they completely blew it. There's all kinds of great stories there.
For sure.
By the way, our friend Trucker Bosun on the chat. Good morning to Donna Howell, who joins us this morning on chat, but also good morning to Trucker Bosun, who says your voice sounds like Pablo Francisco's movie trailer guy voice. And he means that as the highest compliment, by the way.
I'll
it means
take
the highest
it.
compliment. By the way, in just a few moments here, Lindsay's going to drop in on the scene to kind of tell you good morning. She wanted to give us a chance to catch up. You've actually talked with her, as you remember, on the air, and you met her in person here at the party we had to kind of inaugurate the studios as well. How long does the tour take?
The tour is anywhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours, depending on questions and just kind of the absurdity of the French Quarter sometimes. I wish every night was a nice quiet stroll through the French Quarter, but it's like giving a tour in an asylum, honestly. There's a lot of raucous activity on the street. So we try to find isolated pockets, little places that are great for storytelling. And so we try to pace it, I usually say, probably an hour and 45 minutes.
Guys, go to Spirit Empire Tours, by the way. Spirit Empire Tours is where you want to head to. You can find them also at Spirit Empire Tours over there on the Book of Face. And, and on Instagram, it's Human Truckery, but you can remove the TR and replace it with an F, podcast. Human F Uckery podcast on Instagram. You can find them over there, which is terrific. I wanted to ask you this, too, because I have a feeling, one of the things, and we can tell from how you're speaking about it now, is that I think it's important when we do these walking tours, whether they are pure history tours, speculative tours, ghost tours. I think when you have a backdrop like the French Quarter, is that it's important to keep them as classy as possible, right? If that makes any, I don't mean class, I just mean like polished and presented. The performer themselves needs to be the kind of, the tour guide needs to be kind of the articulator in a compelling way of the information. But this isn't like, guy wearing a pirate cap.
Sure. And you can find that.
Yeah, of course, that's what I'm saying.
That's out there, and for some people that's sufficient. Some people kind of they want a babysitter for their drunken stroll through the French Quarter and hear some weird stories along the way that may or may not be rooted in true history.
And that sounds like a good time for a lot of people. It really does.
People
I actually took 2 ghost tours of Franklin, Tennessee, and one of them was a very, very serious historian, and the other one was like, we're going to have a good time, woo! Yeah. And we stopped and had a lot of bourbon along the way. I mean, that's just what it was.
I want to do that.
Good morning, Lindsay. How are you?
Good morning. I didn't even mean to have that effect on. Let me tell you, I've been listening to You Speak, Edward, and I had to hop on because I was just very excited.
Second that motion.
Good to hear from you again, Lindsay.
You too, Fred. Good morning. Sorry to interrupt, but also
no problem.
Not.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. By the way, Lindsay joins us. Lindsay has a 6-year-old, Freya, and of course it's Halloween. How hard was it to keep her unexcited for what is coming later on today?
Well, first of all, they don't have school today because they never go to school anymore, and that's cool. That's another story. But she lost a tooth yesterday. So then we had tooth fairy situation last night, which sort of helped us ease into Halloween. But she did the first thing, woke up this morning, saw what the tooth fairy brought her. It wasn't enough because kids are never satisfied. And so she quickly moved on to what's next, which is Halloween. So yes, we are going to see K-pop Demon Hunters today after the show, and then we'll be trick-or-treating as K-pop Demon Hunters tonight.
Nice. Same.
Nicely done, by the way. Nicely done. I wanted to kind of ask Edward as well, too. Talk about, and we didn't get it, we got so into the weeds because I took us there. I'd asked you the question about the idea of the Taco Bell scenario. Same 5 ingredients, but you've got to make them into different recipes. So talk about how the podcast informs the tours, and the tours inform the podcast, where they diverge. It's not the same thing, of course, but you've got to be able, to, Lindsay will do this on her podcast, We Should Write. We'll often make reference to other shows and all that kind of stuff. But talk about that connection there a little bit.
Well, I mean, they're definitely in the same wheelhouse. Any one of my guests that takes the tour, I unapologetically push the podcast on them, because if they like what we do in the tour, they're definitely going to like the podcast. It allows for a different format. We can make it a little bit more immersive, even though you're not there on the street looking at a haunted house. We use sound effects, scoring, et cetera, et cetera. And so our story's a little bit more long form, but we take the stories out of New Orleans and into the world. And so it's the same themes. We talk about ghosts, gods, gangsters. We talk about dark history, paranormal and phenomenon, et cetera. But we go all over the place, whether it's Japan, Russia, whatever. Human beings they can be counted on for their nonsense across the world.
There's a real big thing for this right now, Lindsay. Lindsay and I actually have a number of podcasters on the show on a regular basis, some of whom are recurring characters here. There's a real hunger for this. People, and do you guys have a big international audience? Yeah, I mean, in regards to, are you guys getting
Oddly enough, sometimes we will spike in the top 10 of
India.
Apple Podcasts in India
Yeah.
or Thailand or something odd. It's random when it happens, but yeah, there are people out there for sure.
Yeah, we had a woman who does a podcast who actually had to add Indian content.
Yeah.
Because people always forget it's the largest English speaking nation in the world.
Sure.
And so I mean they often love all kinds of things spooky.
Yeah.
They love hearing about the American stuff, but they really want to sometimes go like, hey, tell us about us. You go back to that same idea, the
Yeah.
stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. Lindsay, by the way, I wanted to ask you. How is tonight shaping up in terms of a Halloween experience? Do you feel like you got Freya where you needed to be?
Oh yeah, we're good. I got to dye her hair pink at some point today, which is going to ruin my house.
Mira,
but
nice.
She's Mira. Yeah, well done. Well done, Dre.
I got kids.
Yeah, but then we're going over to someone else's. We're going to a neighborhood where they have the neighborhood that gives the big candy bars. You know what I mean? You know, by the fancy people. We go over there that they also have adult treats at each house. So that's
Nice.
where we're going. So it'll be great. I wanted to ask you, Edward. I've never been on. I've only actually been on one ghost tour, and that was in Savannah. And they have them here in Franklin, like down the street from where I live. Jim just mentioned he's done it. But how many have you been on like these other tours? And like, A, do you incorporate stuff into yours? But B, do you see, I mean, is a ghost a ghost a ghost? Or do you see differences between different cities versus New Orleans, which is, the king and queen of all ghosts?
It really depends on your locale. If you go to Charleston, if you go to Savannah, it's a lot of ghost forward. But if you go someplace like Chicago, it's very mafia oriented. And so it really depends. It depends on the mixture of kind of nonsense that each locale kind of brings to the table. New Orleans has a perfect gumbo of all of that, thankfully. And so it makes it very rich for storytelling. You throw a rock and there's a story in the French Quarter. I never run out of material.
Which I'm sorry, I just mean since that was you just said I never run out of material, which sort of answered my question.
Sure.
Is everyone different? I mean, you're constantly evolving and adding in, and it probably depends some on your audience, so to speak, as well, right?
It can depend on the group, depending on their interest. If they want to learn more about voodoo, if they want to learn more about our city's history with witchcraft, if they want to learn more about vampires, etc. I do try to cater to their interests. But in addition to that, when you're doing this night after night for over a decade, sometimes you have to enrich yourself. And so the tour routes can deviate based on my interests, where I'm at on any given night. And so as long as we make it to our destination, we go all over the place. We try to explore the French Quarter.
And where are you at right now, Edward?
I'm in the Dave Nemo studio.
Where, if you were to take a tour tonight,
No, I
where
understand
would your
what you meant.
interests lie?
Oh man, I love talking about our city's history of viral plague and how that relates to a lot of mythology surrounding vampires.
Yeah.
By the way, the best movie, a lot of people would argue the best movie ever made about New Orleans actually is one about viral plague, about the bubonic plague. A Panic in the Streets, made by the great filmmaker Elia Kazan, which is, considered one of the, and because he cast 50 locals in it, so the accent actually is real and it completely works. By the way, Lindsay, when Claire and I went on our honeymoon to England, we stayed in the Shoreditch neighborhood, which of course is the birthplace of punk rock. That was the tour that we did.
Yeah.
We took a punk rock tour, and Brad Bentley, whose company Fastport is the sponsor of the studio, when we were in England for the Saints game for the week before, I went and saw Punch Drunk's new show, Burning City. But he actually spent the first day in Liverpool taking a walking tour of the Beatles world. And then they got on a double-decker bus called the Magical Mystery Tour, and then they drove out to other areas and kind of looked at it. There's all kind. I mean, it's walking history is an amazing thing if you do the research, right? That's really what it kind of comes down to. And it's what Lindsay talks about all the time as well, the idea that if you can't see the work that went into making the sausage, if you're looking for it, then something's wrong. If you turn your brain off and just get swept away by it, that's great. But if you look at it and be like, man, this guy's just making this up as he goes along, it really reads, and it really smacks of people winging it. It can be. You can see people on tours like that, Lindsay. They're like,
Okay, yeah, you can sniff it out. But yeah, to your point about like with Edward, and just because his interests and talents and expertise are so, first of all over the place in a good way, but also pointed, both. But Edward, I talk about like with songwriting, people listen to a song like in the background and never once think of the life that had to be lived in order to write said song.
For sure.
And it's same with you. Like, it's like, you can't just show up on this tour and be like, oh, that guy just popped up and was able to do this. No. There's so much that has gone into it.
No, I didn't start doing this until my dad died. In some strange way, it was a way for me to not just confront existential dread, but cope with the grief, discussing people's demons, discussing our flirtations with death and ghosts and what comes after this, night after night, and meeting people from all over the world. As much as the French Quarter can be absolutely stressful to give a tour in, there was something so therapeutic about it. And so all of that informs my tours.
We're joined
I can't
by.
wait to take one, by the way.
We're joined by, and I'm taking one tonight. I'm so excited, Lindsay. That's my Halloween. Is
so
actually.
cool.
And by the way, it's funny when Lindsay
Way
met,
better than mine with a bunch of screaming kids, by the way.
Oh, God.
when Lindsay met Edward, she came on the porch of the Degas house and she said, "Oh, these are Jim's actual friends."
I was like, oh, you do have friends, and oh, they are cool.
They
Let's go.
are very much your friends, Jim. Edward, can you stick around a little bit longer? We're gonna have Lisa Morton on in the next half hour. Do you have a little extra? You can walk out anytime you want to, but stick around just for a few more minutes. We'll bring him on with Lisa Morton, Lindsay, who's coming up. By the way, she's like a 7-time Bram Stoker Award winner. Cool. So yeah, she's the real deal and a regular contributor to the show. And I do want to kind of ask you at the top before we bring Lisa on. I do want to kind of get into the fact that you are a doctor, the fact that you actually do help people with problems and issues.
We try,
and and that you do bring a certain psychological depth of understanding and all that kind of stuff. How long did it take you to finish that PhD? By the way?
Like 5.5 years, 6 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, and by the way, I remember what I told you, the idea that it's like anybody who's gone through it, Lindsay, can't explain to the people who are going through it that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And anybody that hasn't gone through it doesn't understand.
You gave me some of the most freeing advice when I was writing my doctoral dissertation, is you just said, just write it bad.
Yeah.
And that was it. I said, okay, I'm going to write this thing bad. And 150 pages later, like had a nice rough draft.
Right.
You know?
It's just, that's the thing is too. And like Lindsay and I, Lindsay's got the show We Should Write, which by the way, the last edition.
Oh my gosh, I want Edward to come on that show.
Oh, you should have him on the show, by the way.
I want to talk about people's demons, but in a good way.
Yeah, basically the show is not about like professional writing, although everybody on there is a professional writer in one form or another. It's about using writing as a therapeutic tool.
Sure.
To kind of do some healing.
The healing power of writing. Get your shit out, guys.
Yeah, get your shit out. And by the way, speaking of fun words, the Human Truckery podcast, or actually remove the TR, replace it with an F, you get a sense of that. Edward Carter signing.
Oh, I get it.